What if I told you that some cities are getting rid of sidewalks, one of the fundamental elements of urban life? In a world where pedestrian safety and walkability are hot topics, the idea of removing sidewalks might sound crazy, dangerous, or even counterintuitive. After all, sidewalks are supposed to protect pedestrians from cars, create walkable communities, and encourage sustainable transport. Yet cities across the world, from London to Tokyo, have begun experimenting with shared space designs that eliminate sidewalks and traditional road boundaries altogether. This radical approach intended to slow down traffic, reduce accidents, and create more engaging urban environments. But does it actually work? Let's take a closer look at some of the most famous examples of sidewalk removal and what they can teach us about urban planning in the future. The movement to remove sidewalks comes from a design philosophy called shared space. The idea was popularized by Dutch traffic engineer Hans Munderman, who argued that street divisions between cars, pedestrians, and cyclists often make streets less safe. When drivers rely too much on traffic signals, curbs, and road signs, they pay less attention to their surroundings. However, when those barriers are removed, drivers become more cautious, slow down, and interact more with pedestrians. Shared space isn't just about removing sidewalks. It's about removing signs, signals, and even road markings to create a more natural, organic flow of movement. Several cities have taken this approach to the extreme by completely eliminating sidewalks in key areas. Let's explore some of the most notable examples. One of the most famous examples of sidewalk removal is Exhibition Road in London. This street, home to landmarks like Natural History Museum and Victoria and Albert Museum, was once a congested car-dominated area with traditional sidewalks and crosswalks. In 2012, London redesigned the road, replacing the sidewalks with a single-level surface covered in elegant granite paving. Pedestrians, cyclists, and cars now share the same space, with no clear separation between them. These were the results. Traffic speeds dropped significantly, making the area safer for pedestrians. Pedestrian numbers increased by 30% as people felt more comfortable walking in the space. Accidents decreased, proving that the shared space concept could actually improve safety. But not everyone is a fan. Critics argue that it can be confusing for visually impaired individuals who rely on curbs for navigation. The Netherlands has been a global leader in shared space design. The city of Delft pioneered some of the first experiments in sidewalk-free urban planning, particularly in its historic city center. What changed? Sidewalks were removed to encourage seamless movement between pedestrians and vehicles. Streets were narrowed to make cars naturally slow down. Bicycle lanes and pedestrian priority areas were emphasized. And the results? A more pedestrian-friendly environment, even though cars are still technically allowed to drive through. The city proved that removing sidewalks doesn't necessarily mean reducing walkability, it can actually enhance it. In 2007, the German town of Bomte completely removed traffic lights, sidewalks, and road signs from its main street. The goal was to create a more organic and natural traffic flow where everyone, drivers, cyclists, and pedestrians, had to rely on eye contact and human interaction to navigate. The effects were shocking. The number of traffic accidents dropped drastically. Average car speeds decreased to about 30 kilometers per hour or 18 miles per hour. Pedestrians felt safer and more empowered in the space. Bomte's success inspired other European cities to experiment with similar sidewalk-free zones. The small town of Poynton in England had a major problem. Its central intersection was choked with heavy congestion and pedestrian-unfriendly infrastructure. In 2012, urban planners removed traditional sidewalks, crosswalks, and even traffic lights, replacing them with shared space. The key results were traffic congestion dropped significantly, even though cars still passed through. Pedestrian movement became easier with fewer barriers. The local economy improved as people spent more time in town center instead of rushing through. Many locals initially hated the idea, but over time they began to appreciate the slower speeds and improved pedestrian experience. In bustling Tokyo, sidewalks haven't been removed completely, but in areas like Ginza, something different happens. On weekends, the city closes roads to cars and turns major streets into pedestrian-only zones. This concept, called pedestrian paradise, attracts over 100,000 pedestrians every weekend. Major roads like Chuodori are converted into public plazas with seating, greenery, and open space. Businesses along these streets see a surge in sales as people spend more time shopping and dining. Tokyo's experiment shows that cities don't necessarily need to remove sidewalks entirely. Instead, they can reimagine them as flexible spaces. While these examples show promising results, the idea of removing sidewalks remains controversial. Critics argue that accessibility issues arise for people with disabilities who rely on curbs and signals. Shared spaces can be confusing, especially for tourists and elderly pedestrians. Some locations still need clear pedestrian zones to maintain safety. However, proponents argue that shared spaces make streets safer by slowing down cars. Pedestrians feel more empowered when they are not restricted to narrow sidewalks, and cities become more dynamic and engaging when traditional road divisions are removed. So will sidewalks disappear completely in the future? Probably not. But urban planners are rethinking the role of sidewalks, transforming streets into more flexible, people-oriented spaces. The success of cities like Delft, Bomte, and London suggests that removing sidewalks can work in the right context, but it's not a one-size-fits-all solution. Cities need to prioritize people over cars, whether that means removing sidewalks, widening them, or redesigning streets entirely. The goal is the same: creating safer, more livable, and walkable urban environments. Would you like to see sidewalk-free streets in your city? Let me know in the comments.